Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5 The Zone. Welcome in on a Friday morning. We've got some football for you right out of the gate. We're going to start you off with a trip up to the University of Utah. The new offensive coordinator, Jason Beck, meeting with the media, optimistic as he gets ready for his first summer camp. The opener less than a month away. Here's Jason Beck, Utah offensive coordinator, with the media.
What have you seen from them that gives you hope coming into this fall?
Doug, who's been here the whole time Wet has, he does a phenomenal job in the weight room. Talked about how strong this group has been, how hard they've worked, and really likes where they're at. So that feedback from him, those comments are really promising, that we got a really good group, they're working hard, they're bought in, and we got good leadership.
Spring ball is about, installing the offense. What is the next phase in fall camp in terms of your offense and getting it integrated with the guys?
You obviously need to be ready for all the situations that are going to be coming up, and it's really identifying who are the trustworthy guys, the playmaker guys. When you put those 11 guys together, all doing their different roles, who can you depend on and count on? So it's a matter of finding consistency, who's showing up every day, consistently getting their job done. So we know we can count on them to put them out there for the game. So that's what you're trying to develop, that and tease that out of who to count on when you put them out there.
The last 6 months, Devin's really taken some time to establish his foothold and leadership. I guess heading into fall camp as the offensive coordinator, just what are you looking for him to continue to make steps in establishing himself in the offense and so forth?
Yeah, just continuing to lead, both first by example, through his play, being that real consistent playmaker, doing the right things, and then being a good teammate, which means if you see something, you're not their friend, you're their teammate. Whether that's positively reinforcing what they're doing, or whether that's asking them to live up to a different standard. And so Dev shows up every day and works hard, and he leads by example. And so just continue to do that, and bring everybody else along and develop the chemistry with all those skill guys.
When it comes to QB2 spot, what are you looking for, and how quickly do you want to try to establish that?
Yeah, you're not too far away now from you start game planning UCLA and in the seasons here. And so we have 2 scrimmages along the way, and by the end of that second scrimmage, you would really like to have an idea, plan of here's what we're doing. And same thing, it's all about, who can you trust, who can you depend on, who's being consistent in that role. When their number's called, their opportunity comes up, who's going to be ready to take that on.
Tobias Merriweather and Larry Simmons were the 2 receivers that you brought in during the spring portal. How important are these next few weeks in getting them up to speed with the offense and their chemistry with Dampier?
Oh, it's really important to see what they can bring to this team to help this offense score points to win games. And so them, Bryce Duke, running back, has experiences in. So yeah, it's really these next 2 weeks, you're not making huge judgments right away, because it's going to take a little time to settle in and get their rhythm and get going. But once you kind of see that thing turn, now you're looking at that feedback of how are they contributing, what can we count on them for, and to know how we can use them in the offense.
What led to your interest in your pursuit of them? What qualities do they possess that you think translates here?
We're looking for guys who can consistently win, get open, catch the ball. The more they can stretch the field or be versatile, play both outside and inside, is great, but it's all about who can consistently win, make plays, catch the ball to help move the chains and score points.
Kyle talked about this offense will be pretty similar to what you ran at New Mexico. How similar to that, and kind of what are you trying to do that's maybe different, or are you trying to do anything different?
We're still in that process of that playing out. For instance, when we started New Mexico last year, we had 5-6 skilled receivers that we thought were going to be some of our better players. And as we headed in that first game, that was kind of the trajectory we were on. Well, as we got early in the season, some of those guys were struggling to consistently make plays. and our running backs were way rising up in what they were doing, and so that thing shifted, in that course, and there became 2 receivers and a tight end that we really relied on, and then it was all these running back guys, and so the offense kind of molded more that direction. So, with the Devin and the O-line, that's the most predictable right now. It's the other spots that are more what direction is this going to take with the dependable playmaker, guys you trust, and kind of the offense molding, shifting that direction.
For fans that haven't seen it yet, how would you kind of describe your offensive philosophy?
Man, we really just want to put the right guys in the right places to make plays. We want to adapt to what our strengths are and play to those strengths. Real like eye test. We're going to go not at a fast tempo, but we're going no huddle. We're moving guys around, kind of spread. The QB reads and RPOs are in there. But year to year, that thing always shifts to who's your personnel and what are their strengths. And some years that's more passing, some years that's more running. So, that thing will vary because we want to play to our strengths.
When you have a star receiver or a star running back, it's pretty easy to feature them in the offense. It seems like you've got 2 star offensive tackles. How do you go about featuring your offensive line and their strengths as players?
Yeah, we look at the quarterback first and we look at the O-line second of what they can do. And the O-line's obviously a strength, specifically with the tackles. Man, they're athletic. So you can do things with your tackles where you utilize that athleticism that you may not do with other guys. So, getting them out on the edges and screens to block in space, having them pull in the run game, to add to your run scheme. So using their athleticism to block the second level, to block on the perimeter, is something you want to take advantage of.
You guys moved Otto Tia to tight end towards the tail end of spring. What kind of led to that change, and what are you looking for him to do, as fall camp gets ready to open?
He's kind of this hybrid guy that has good size, and he's 220, and he's big, strong receiver. So we know the flexed out in the slot outside stuff is going to be natural for him. So we thought, let's move him to the tight end room so we can develop more of those things that he's not as experienced at. Knowing from that room we can always flex him out and do stuff. But to have him in the outside receiver room and then try to move him inside to do things, a little different. So that was just the kind of have him in that room as a home base to expand his versatility and how he can help.
How much is
In the spring, you said Wayshawn was limited. I guess where is his health at, and do you expect him to be full go for?
Yeah, he's healthy. He's had a really good summer and ready to go. Yeah.
How much does Nate Johnson change this offense for you?
Well, that's going to be part of this discovery of how consistent playmaking. What is he bringing at a high level? Because he definitely has, some juice, speed, and can do unique things. So we definitely want to utilize that, take advantage of it, and discover, how much and in what ways and all of those things that we can count on at a high level more than just kind of a gimmicky thing here or there.
Last season, Devin ran a lot and also passed a lot. Is there a development that you're looking for, maybe to have him be more pass first or maybe more run first? Walk me through your thinking on that.
He'll, just him individually, he'll continue to progress and develop and is really capable. So this is not a thing where we were running him more because he was not capable as a passer. It was just, and he'll continue to develop that way. It was really just the pieces around him and what we could do led to him being more involved in the run game. Certain times in the season we had some critical injuries, and so he became, if it's 4th and 2, who do you trust most to get this thing? With a couple, there was a spot where in the car he was out with a high ankle sprain. In a couple of those games, no, you absolutely knew Devin would get you the first, so you called his number a little more. So it's just kind of dictated by, the matchup, health, all those things.
2 more here.
Dev talked a lot about just improving his decision making. Now that he's been here for 6 months, have you seen any improvements in that and just turnover ratio or just how he's reading the offense?
It's hard to put a total thing on that right now because spring was so new with all the skill guys getting on the same page.
Right.
So we'll kind of see where it picks up, in fall camp. But no, that's what it's all about, right? It's all about being a dynamic player, being a playmaker, and protecting the ball because that dictates winning at such a high rate. So just going forward that way.
You talked about what Larry and Tobias brings to the wide receiver room. What does Bryce bring to this running back room now that he's joined?
Based off the film, it'd be great to see him and get him, but based off the film, he brings an element catching the ball out of the backfield. He's proven where he's done that in the past. And then his running skill set, he can, he has some juice, so he can pretty good quickness and spring it. So being able to put him in situations to use, I wouldn't say he's quite half running back, half slot receiver, but he has a little more of that receiving quality than the typical running back does. And so being able to see what he can do with those skill sets.
All right, there's Jason Beck. Stay with us. Coming up next, Greg Bedard is going to join us. Greg Bedard talking a little NFL football. He covers the New England Patriots, and we got his thoughts on the AFC East and a couple of Utes who've shown up in New England. Well, actually, one Ute and one Cougar who've shown up in New England. We'll talk with Greg Bedard next. Stay with us. DJ and PK, we're joined now by Greg Bedard, New England Patriots writer, analyst for and founder of BostonSportsJournal.com, here to talk about the AFC East as we gear up for the upcoming NFL season. Greg, good morning.
Morning, guys. How are we doing?
We're doing well. We were just talking about the amount of passion that ebbs and flows with winning and losing. There's some lifers, and nobody's felt certainly the ebb now than the Patriots. How's everybody adjusting to the new world order? Changing coaches like other teams change coaches, changing quarterbacks like other teams change quarterbacks after 2 decades of really unprecedented success.
Not well, to be honest. I mean, I think that the Patriots fans, especially the young ones, there were a lot of kids who went through high school, college, who knew nothing but the Patriots being in conference championship games and Super Bowls. And, when that happened, they were able to puff out their chest a lot and look down at a lot of people. And I think they enjoyed that view for a long time, and then to all of a sudden be knocked down quite a few pegs in recent years, that wasn't fun for them. They like to be the bullies. They like to talk trash, and they were able to do that, and they couldn't anymore, and they're hoping Mike Vrabel brings that back.
What's the belief level in Drake May?
I think it's certainly among the fans a lot. I mean, he's the hope. Among the coaches, it's really good. I mean, I think that the sky's the limit. I mean, I think that people don't realize, you can compare him to the other guys in this draft class, like Jaden Daniels, but the biggest difference was, and the Patriots knew this, when he was coming out. I mean, Drake May is still just 22 years old. He did not play. Comparatively speaking to like a Jaden Daniels or even a J.J. McCarthy, he did not play a lot of football the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, even in high school, for example, during COVID, J.J. McCarthy went down to Florida. He transferred to IMG Academy so he could continue to play. Drake May didn't do that, and he didn't have a football season his senior year, and then he goes to North Carolina. He redshirts, so he basically doesn't play for 2 years. And then he started the last 2 years. So before last year, he had started 2 of the previous 4 football seasons as a young kid. So the talent is there. The intangibles are there. Can he put it all together with Josh McDaniels? I think so. But a lot of things are going to have to go right, up front with the receivers, things like that, to allow him to really take a step forward.
Khyiris Tonga has been in the league now. He went to BYU, and he's been in the league for 4 years. Played for 3 different teams, the Bears, Vikings, and the Cardinals. He's landed in New England. Where does he fit in there, and how does that defensive line look?
Yeah, well, I didn't know much about him before they signed him, but obviously somebody had their eye on him because they sort of quickly pounced on him. He's really the only quote-unquote like run-stuffing defensive tackle that they have, and and I know he can do more than that. Watching him in one-on-ones with the offensive line the past couple of days, I've been surprised at his level of pass rush that he can bring, but really he's the only like lone run stuffer. The Patriots decided to move on from Devon Godchow, who was their nose tackle for a lot of time. We didn't know. We don't know exactly what Mike Vrabel's going to do up front. Traditionally his defensive haven't been that great against the run, but it looks like it's a departure from the Bill Belichick system that they ran for years. They're going to create a lot of havoc up front. Really get up the field, but there are going to be times where they have to, really stop the run, and Tonga is going to be a huge part of that.
What did they win? 3 games last year? Was that what it was?
4.
My bad.
4. No, I mean the last one, the 4th one, which cost them a very high draft pick, was the Joe Milton throwaway game in the final week of the season, Gerard Mayo's final game. So there's a lot of Patriots fans who would like to forget about that 4th victory, actually.
Yeah, see, that's what it was. The point I was going to make, though, outside of the Bills, they're not in the most difficult conference there. So are there wins to be had to the level of they can see some progress? Because that's what it's all about. I don't think anybody's going to expect. Vrabel's a tough guy. We understand that, and he's had success. But I don't think people are talking about playoffs. So they can find maybe some 2 or 3 more wins and call it at least a progression of a season. Well, I guess it's up to you if you want to call it a successful season.
Actually, you might be surprised because that might be the national view, but the local view, and including my view, is I think this team should take a substantial step forward this year. And if they're not competing for the postseason, somewhere around, let's call it 8, 9, 10 wins, I think that would be a disappointment, for a couple of different reasons. Number one, they were a 3 or 4 win team last year and the year before. But I think there were certainly a number of games that with a more competent coach, they would have won than Gerard Mayo, who was not ready for the job. There was dysfunction on the coaching staff. It wasn't a good coaching staff. A lot of players took a step backwards last year, did not improve. Now with Vrabel here, Josh McDaniels, Vrabel's old defensive staff in Tennessee, they have Doug Marrone's coaching the offensive line. They have 3 offensive line coaches where they barely could scrape together one over the past couple of years, with guys needing to take absences and things like that. I think the coaching is going to be a lot better. They did a really nice job at free agency. They basically did what the Commanders did last year, which was they signed a bunch of mid-level guys, but guys that people on the coaching staff that they knew the guys. They could vouch for them, and they know what they're going to get. Basically, they copied what the Washington Commanders did when Dan Quinn was hired, and we saw the results of that. The Commanders went from 4 wins to 12 wins, and they were in the NFC Championship game. Now, I'm expecting that. No, but and it's not just because of that. Their schedule is incredibly weak. Take a look at it. Especially at home, they should be able to reel off a bunch of wins. So, I expect Mike Vrabel to get this thing going in the right direction quickly, and they at least need to be in it towards the last week of the season. If they're not, a lot of people around here are going to be disappointed.
PK grew up in Jersey, and he always says everybody's got an opinion, but unless you're holding a ticket and you put money on it, who cares about your opinion? And I saw the odds to win the division last night, looking around at stuff, knowing you were coming on, and the Bills were obviously heavy, heavy favorites to win the division, but the next best odds were the Patriots, then the Dolphins, then the Jets. Now, Miami, they've been touted and disappointed in 500-ish, and Tua can't stay healthy, and that's a huge factor. But I was surprised to see the Patriots second. But I guess it goes to everything you were just talking about, because the people who are putting money down, somebody is betting. Maybe it's a lot of local money in Boston, but somebody is betting on the Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, their Vegas over-under is 8.5. I mean, I think that's pretty accurate. I think, my initial pass-through on their schedule, I said, I just go through it and I don't, think about, I just look at the end of the day when I get to the schedule. What I had 11-6, and now that was before Aaron Rodgers signed with the Steelers, who they play in Week 3. If it was Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers in Week 16, I might have kept that, but Rodgers should be healthy. He shouldn't implode that team by that time. But, I mean, the division, that's another big reason. I mean, I've seen Justin Fields plenty over the years. He's the new Jets quarterback. He stinks. He's not good. Now, he beat the Patriots once, when he was with the Bears. But he has these games, like one every out of 8, where he looks like a competent quarterback. The Dolphins feel like they're about to implode down there with, they traded away Jalen Ramsey and other guys, and Tyreek Hill, who knows if he still wants to trade. Like, it just seems like that's hanging on by a thread, plus to his health. The Patriots have a lot to sort out, especially on the offensive line. But, if they can get that figured out, they should be pretty competitive. Now, I'm not going to pick them to, upset the Bills, at least in the division. Could they steal one from them? Yeah. I mean, Mac Jones, when things were not good here, had one of his best wins when he came back and beat Josh Allen and the Bills at Gillette. And so I don't rule them splitting with the Bills. So, but I think it's a team on the upswing, and they're hoping to capture the same magic that the Commanders did last year.
You mentioned the Jets and their quarterback fields. Doesn't it seem like some teams, if they don't have a quarterback, they run through several, and it takes several years before they finally get one? It's an amazing phenomenon in this league.
Yeah, I mean, that's where the Patriots, messed this up. I mean, before I covered the Patriots, I covered the Packers, and there was nobody better at the Packers than, taking guys early, whether it was when I was there, Aaron Rodgers behind Brett Favre, and then they took Jordan Love. We'll ultimately see where Jordan Love is. But, I mean, really, if you want to look at, besides letting Tom Brady go and not signing him, where this Patriots dynasty sort of ran out of gas was when Bill Belichick had to trade Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, I think that Kraft basically made him trade Jimmy Garoppolo and stick with Tom. But that was one thing. But the problem was that Belichick threw a hissy fit and, didn't draft a quarterback again. He could have had Lamar Jackson in the next draft and could have gotten him ready behind him. Instead, he did nothing, to the point when Tom Brady left, he, paid Cam Newton like $1 million for one season, and that was a disaster. And then Mac Jones and the coaching around him with Matt Patricia. I mean, the Patriots were on their way until they, fell into Drake May, and I think it was a no-doubter. And I think luckily for them, at least Drake should be the guy to at least, in the short term that gets this thing turned around. But they were headed down there too until they sort of lucked into Drake May.
University of Utah has cranked out a lot of really good defensive backs. Miles Battle was on the roster, and you were saying guys didn't develop last year. Some guys went backwards, and he barely played.
Yeah.
Is he the kind of guy, diamond in the rough, the new coaching staff will appreciate him blossom, or he's on his way out of town? What happens, you think?
Yeah, I think Miles came on the roster towards the middle or late last season, if I remember correctly. He missed a bunch of the off season with some sort of injury, which probably set him back a little bit. He's been out there since camp started. Has shown up a few times. There's there's a lot of competition behind Christian Gonzalez and Carlton Davis at cornerback. So, Miles has as good a chance as anybody. He just needs to stay on the field.
Well, Greg, we appreciate a few minutes on the AFC East and the New England Patriots. Thanks for joining us.
No problem. Thanks, guys.
There's Greg Bedard. A reminder, DJ and PK is proudly presented by our title sponsor, Black Desert Resort, Utah's premier golf resort. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're talking with Scotty G. The Aggies camp is open. That's next. Stay with us. Scotty G joins us right now. Scotty, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Excellent. How are you?
Can't complain. Life is good. Football is here.
Football is here. What is your number one question about the Aggies?
Who are these new 87 players that are on the roster? I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. It's like, I think I've made this joke a few times, but it's like that first sequence in Major League when everybody's around going, who are these guys? I don't know who these guys are. Who are these guys? And I think that's what a lot of Aggie fans are doing right now. Like, okay, we don't know who these guys are, but let's try to figure it out and see how good they are.
The thing that I like, according to their own acknowledgement and their own release, that they only have 4 returning starters. So that should make an extremely interesting camp for the next 3 to 4 weeks, because obviously there's a whole bunch of starters or starting positions that are available, and if you want one, go win one.
Well, I mean, you covered Bronco closer than anybody else at BYU. He came in and he said, look, I don't care what you've done before. I've evaluated enough film, because he did encourage some people to leave after, watching some film and evaluating. And then everybody else that stayed, that came back, and everybody that was new that he brought in, he said, hey, look, everybody's starting at 0 and everything's available for you. And so if you're here, that means I think that you're a good enough player. So I don't care what you've done in the past. Everybody has a chance to be a starter and get significant playing time. So everybody started at ground zero. And so with Bronco, you believe that. Bronco doesn't play favorites. Bronco will put the best players that he thinks out there out on the field. And so that's going to be fascinating to see. And if I'm a player, I'm encouraged by that, because it doesn't matter what preconceived coaching staffs may have said about me or the issues that I've had. I'm starting at 0, and I have a chance to go out and prove myself and get some playing time.
Bronco was in New Mexico last year, and that defense was terrible, so it's not like he can bring a great defense with him. And he inherits a Utah State defense that was terrible. When New Mexico played Utah State, you probably remember this, 50-45, you were screaming touchdown all day long. Is there somewhere in there the core of, if not a good, at least a decent defense? Are there a couple difference makers that'll make the game easier for everybody else on the defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, and I think that, I was talking to Jan Jorgensen yesterday, who's on that staff, and Jan said that the talent level that they have this year from a defensive standpoint far exceeds what they had at New Mexico last year. And so if there's something you can take away from that, obviously they're starting with what they believe is better personnel than what they had in New Mexico. But I do think you've got a guy like Ike Larson, who was 3 years ago, looking to be on the cusp of stardom, and then took a step backwards last year and struggled with injuries and some other issues. And I think Bronco Mendenhall will be very good for a guy like Ike Larson to help him mature as a player and as a human being. And I think that he has a chance to become a very good player. You've got a defensive line with guys like Gabe Iniguez and some other guys that have floated around that are just looking for some structure and looking for a place to settle in. And I think that's a good chance. This is a lot of these guys. This is their 4th defensive coordinator in 4 years. And so Nick Howell and Bronco Mendenhall bring an established system and some consistency and hopefully a little bit of structure. And you're right, statistically, both those defenses were miserable last year. And I think there's only one direction, frankly, they can go, and that's improved.
Unless I'm wrong, they've declared Barnes as the starter at quarterback, right?
Not officially, but yeah. I mean, all but an official statement, it'll be Barnes, yeah.
Because I'm wondering, he's had to fight and scratch and claw, and you talk about Broncos kind of guy, man. Barnes is right there out of nowhere, and Bronco loves to talk about himself being out of nowhere, and there's a lot of truth to it and all that stuff. And BYU didn't recruit him 14 times, I think. I think it's a fish story. It keeps growing. But the point I'm making is Barnes, speaking of going into camp, he's not having this fight for survival. He's the guy, and now trying to be an undisputed leader. I'm just wondering if you think that we've seen good moments from him, if that maybe settles him down. He's not going to take anything for granted and be complacent by any stretch. It's not who he is. But just the fact that, hey, I'm going to be the guy on this team should just help his development, just knowing I don't have to fight and scratch and claw just to get somebody to notice me.
It's funny. I brought that up specifically with him at Mountain West Conference Media Days. For the first time in his career, for the first time in high school, since high school, he goes into a fall camp knowing he's the guy, and knowing that, and after spring, after all those, the practices, he can lead a team during summer workouts saying, hey, I'm your quarterback. If you want to get out on the field, you want to get passes thrown your way, you're going to have to rally around me. And, he was fired up about it. He said, yeah, absolutely. He said, I want to keep that same edge that I've had because, one thing about Bryson Barnes, everybody loves to talk about the pig farm and everything else. The kid's got an edge to him. Right. He's got a little anger to him. And I think everybody telling him that, you're not good enough. And he said, look, I played in that first Rose Bowl he played in and gave us an opportunity to win that game. And 6 days later, I have to go to Lowe's and get an application because I still didn't have a scholarship, or Home Depot, one of those two. And so here's a guy that has fought for everything. And now finally there's a school out there and a coaching staff that said, okay, this is your team, go get it. And I think he's going to respond really well. I'm really excited to see what he can do, knowing he's the guy. And that's one of the really fun storylines for Utah State this year.
He seems to be cutting down on the interceptions in the games he played last year. I mean, the touchdown-interception ratio was way better than it was at Utah. Yeah. But the completion percentage didn't really change. Has Bronco said anything about what the goal is there?
Kevin McGivern did, and McGivern wants him in the mid to upper 60s. And he says, I think we can get him there. Two very, very different offenses. I mean, you could not find more extreme differences in offenses with what he had at Utah and then what he played for with that Blake Anderson, Kyle Cephalo system last year, where they just love to throw the ball all over the field with the wide splits. And that's not something that I think Bryson was overly comfortable with, that system last year. This one's going to be more in the middle and not as conservative as Utah, but certainly not as crazy as what they had at Utah State last year. So I think this system will probably fit him a little bit better. And I think that's a fair goal to have him around 65 to 67%.
One of the things I think that Bronco does so well is put the focus on football. And there's a lot of he just has a way of eliminating nonsense, right? He came in to the most tumultuous time in the history of BYU sports. And we all know it. We all remember because we were all around back then. And I was a beat writer, so I was up to it in my eyeballs. And to watch him flip the whole storyline and the identity. People like to talk of the word culture. I like the word identity. And to me, culture is kind of out there, and it's in the cosmos, and you can define it different ways. But I think, at least for me, and people can disagree, obviously, that I go with the word identity, because if you have an identity, you know who you are at all times. And for me, it's just, maybe I'm simple, but it's easier to understand. And the way he flipped that, metaphorically, symbolically overnight, was one of the finest coaching jobs and really life jobs that I've ever seen in my 40 years in this business, right? And so Utah State has had all this tumultuous stuff going on, it seems like, for several years. And how much do you think just his presence at the helm of this program can make a difference, because he is a calming influence that points you in the right direction. I've seen it up close, and I know he can do it.
He is the captain that will get this boat through troubled waters. How about that?
That was beautiful. I feel like Simon and Garfunkel or something.
We put him on a boat instead of a bridge, or it would have been perfect.
No, I was, remember that, I was trying to make a Gordon Monson joke. Remember when Gordon was kissing up to a CEO, or not a CEO, but a boss of ours, and said, "Are you the captain that will get us, our boat, through these troubled waters?" And I'm looking at Gordon like, "What troubled waters, Gordon? We're fine. What are you doing?"
Nice.
He's like, "Hey, it's Steve Starks. Let me do my thing here. I'm trying to get in good with the guy." I'm like, "All right, fair enough." Anyway, sorry. Anytime I can sneak in a little Gordon Monson humor, I'm going to do it. But no, you're 100% correct. I mean, when Bronco Mendenhall was a candidate for that job, we all immediately said, yes, that makes sense. Because what you need right now is a guy that's going to come in, really focus on maturing young men as both athletes and football players and human beings, and won't put up with the nonsense, that will clean house, that will let these guys really focus on player and human development and all that stuff. The Bronco football comes fifth, and all that stuff that we've known for Bronco for all those years at BYU. That is exactly what Utah State needs in that athletic department and with that football team. So, yeah, it was a home run hire in terms of that. It just made perfect sense. That's why I'm actually surprised that it happened, because a lot of times Utah State tries to make things harder than it really is. And honestly, whether it was going to be Jay Hill, who was the first option that Diana Sabo went for and made multiple offers, and then when Jay decided to stay at BYU, then it was Bronco Mendenhall, and either one of those would have been perfect for the situation that Utah State was working through at that point.
You had Jared Calhoun, the basketball coach, on the radio yesterday. I was in the car and was listening, driving around. And were you more surprised by how blunt he was about the athletic director, more surprised by the fact he has Memphis and Penny Hardaway coming into the spectrum, or more surprised that he wrote a check for $150,000?
I would say the $150,000 surprised me because, look, he gets he signed a contract extension for $1.8 million. Okay, so you got to figure, I don't know, DJ, in that tax range where you're at with him, you're probably taking home maybe half of that, maybe 60% of that. And then, you've got your agent fees and all that other stuff that you got to pay out. So essentially, he's giving, probably a little bit more than 10% of his salary back to Utah State for NIL funds, which is not a bad idea, because why are you trying to be successful? Well, you got to have players and you got to have talent. So you might as well invest in your players. So $150,000, I mean, that's not, you don't blink your eye at that. That's a huge donation to your own program to try to get players in and be successful. The Memphis thing I'd known for a while, so that wasn't a big surprising thing, but they are playing in February. So it's not a November, December game. It's a take a break from conference play, and Penny Hardaway in Memphis is coming to the Spectrum, and then they'll do a return visit to Memphis next year. But the one thing that I thought was really fun for people to hear, because I hear Jared talk like this all the time, but to have him go on the air and talk like this, I thought was great, because he said this hire for Utah State as an athletic director will make or break this athletic department. And I think he's spot on. These coaches are very, very keenly interested, and they want to make he and Bronco's not as upfront about it, but he's believes the same way. They want to say in who their new boss is. They want to know who it's going to be. They want to give their opinions. They want to give their insight, because they understand with this conference transition they're going through, with the crazy world of NIL and collectives and house settlements, and the fact that you're going to see another round of realignment probably in the next 4 to 5 years. They know that this is as critical of a time for any athletic department in the country, particularly at Utah State. So, again, according to Jared Calhoun, you can't screw this up, so don't screw this up.
So you want the athletic director to stay 10 years. Is that a good number? Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
Okay, so why in the world would I let Calhoun have a say? He ain't going to be there 10 years.
Nope. Nope. And I agree. But I do think that if Calhoun goes 500 next year, or if he, has key injuries, that you're going to want to have a coach that has a good connection with his athletic director. But to your point, I would take a guy that, coaches are going to come and go. Look, if Jared Calhoun blows up and let's say he has some crazy magical season, wins a game in the NCAA tournament or two, he's going to be gone. There's no doubt. Coaches are going to come and go. That's just going to happen. But I want an athletic director who he can be the face of your institution. Sure, right. He can be your guy that will be there for 10 years and say, hey, guess what? You know what? He left. Don't worry. I got this. I know this community. I know what works here. I will take care of this. And there's guys out there that can do this job. Here's a guy. Here's a name that not a lot of people are talking about, but PK, you've been around him. I'd hire Heath Schroyer tomorrow as the athletic director. Guy hired Will Wade at McNeese State, got that thing going. Right. I think Heath Schroyer knows Utah. Right. I don't think he's LDS, but he obviously knows the culture. He was at BYU for 5 years.
Oh yeah, he'd be fun.
So I think he would knock it out of the park as an athletic director.
Yeah, I just want somebody who has some local ties and then has a chance. The Stu Morrill thing, you can't count on that, right? And it worked well, and he had the local connection, so he retires here. It was great. And I don't know that you can do that. Because whoever it might be, like a Matt Wells had a local connection, Gary Anderson had a local connection, and they did well, but somebody's going to double their money. What are you going to do? I want somebody who at least has a chance to be here 5 years. Just give me a chance, and I'll take my chances on that.
Yeah, and you can't, and that's why I've railed on these dopey search firms forever because I hate them. Because what they do is, and I'll use Diana Sabo specifically. Diana Sabo had never heard of Utah State before. She didn't know nothing about Utah State, but she has a search firm that gets in her ear and says, hey, on your natural progression as a hopefully a Power 4 athletic director in the Big Ten, you need to take this next step. This is the step you need to take on your career. So the first time she takes a step in the state of Utah is for her introductory press conference. And I'm not knocking her. I mean, look, she has a career path. That's what she wants to do, and God bless her for it. But for Utah State, you know what? Hire somebody that at least wants the Utah State job, not being advised to take the Utah State job.
No, I'm with you 100%.
Does everybody else understand that, Scotty? You do. But
I do.
But I just feel like people at Utah State don't know that based on who gets hired there. It feels like everybody who gets hired there, it's stepping stone and 1 foot's already out the door.
Yeah. And I think that's what Jared Calhoun, and look, Jared's part of that too as well. Jared probably understands, I have
you got to quit hiring me.
Too.
You got to quit hiring me.
But he also knows that he knows what's best for Utah State too. Like he sees what's going on there. And so I think that he's like, all right, you know what? You have to have, and he's begging for somebody. He has no local ties, but he came on the air yesterday. He's like, you have to have somebody who knows and appreciates the LDS culture. And to Jared Calhoun's credit, one of the first things he did was found whoever was a bishop and knew and was in the church and had some leadership and said, okay. And he took him out to lunch and he picked his brain. What's a mission? What's the story here? What do we ask these guys to do? What do you ask them to do? So he's like, look, you know what? I'm here. I'm going to figure out what this place is about and figure out what the culture is. Most people that come to Utah State, whether as a coach or an athletic director, have never done things like that.
I like it. And I think that's the way to go. Find yourself some success, because this move into the Pac-12, it's not the old Pac-12, but I still think it's a pretty good conference. And you have an opportunity to take a massive step and be a consistent winner in the two most important sports in this conference. With the right people in place, Utah State, I have no doubt in my mind, can do that.
Yes. Yep. And they've done a fairly good job. They were behind the 8 ball in NIL, and then now that they've made some made some efforts. They've gotten much, much better. They're right now probably third or fourth in the conference in football NIL payments, and that's their goal. Look, if you can be top third in this new Pac-12, in the top four of that conference or the top three in that conference in NIL payments in football and basketball, you have a chance to be competitive with Washington State and Oregon State and
Boise State.
Unless they have a Heisman Trophy winner, you should be at least competitive with Boise State near the top of the conference every year.
I think they can.
Yes,
it's there.
I fully believe that.
And it's not that far away. It's within reach.
Yep. And look, I mean, I don't think there's a university that's done more with less than Utah State has. I mean, I know football hasn't been great, but they're not the football team that you covered for that year. You know, when you were doing the beat writer at Utah State for a season or two, like that was miserable. Yeah. Those were some bad years. Even at their worst, they're still winning 5, 6, 7 games a season. So, I mean, I think that they've got a chance to really be something and continue to elevate this program.
Scotty G, we appreciate it as always. You are 3.5 hours away from barbecue, so enjoy that.
Yes. By the way, best ribs out there, too. I don't usually order ribs at a barbecue place because, frankly, I think I make them better than anybody. But this is one place where I had the ribs. I was like, oh, crap, these guys are better than what I can do. So, Kenny J's kills it. They're awesome.
Here's Scott Garrard talking Aggies. When we come back, what is trending? The headlines are next.